Did you know, modern construction techniques such as prefabrication and modular construction were initially used in architecture during the early 20th century? This concept emerged as key innovations were driven by industrialization, wartime needs, and the quest for efficiency in architecture. The first example of this was introduced in Le Corbusier's project Domino House in 1914. This project theorized the notion of the frame system in architecture and was also the beginning of mass production. Le Corbusier played a pivotal role in shaping early 20th century prefabrication and modular construction, influencing modern architecture with his theories, prototypes, and large-scale projects. The transition towards tectonic expression occurred gradually across the 20th century as a reaction to industrialized building techniques and mass production. The critical regionalism movement fully embraced tectonic expression, which led to Kenneth Frampton and others, theorizing tectonic expression as fundamental to architecture. In the mid-1800s, we saw the beginning of prefabrication and modular assembly. The project that initiated this was Joseph Paxton's Great Conservatory in Chatsworth, England. The conservatory was one of the first large-scale prefabricated glass houses, employing innovative construction techniques that influenced 19th-century modern architecture. This modular approach influenced later construction methods, including the Crystal Palace in 1851. As mentioned earlier, the early 20th century saw architects like Le Corbusier take prefabrication and modular construction to the next level. The Domino House in 1914 is considered the Bible of modern construction by becoming the foundation for modern prefabrication through separating structure from walls, enabling modular design. The first edition of prefabrication and modular construction in housing was Le Corbusier's Pessac housing in Bordeaux, France, 1925. Commissioned by industrialist Henry Frugies, this housing estate embodied Le Corbusier's 5 points of architecture and introduced new construction techniques that influenced later modernist housing projects. Its reinforced concrete system, open-plan flexibility, and ribbon windows became key elements of modern architecture and influencing mass housing for the future. This project led to the Weichenhof estate in Stuttgart, 1927, which was a showcase of modernist architecture, featuring designs from 17 leading architects including Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe, Walter Gropius, J.J.P. Oud, and Peter Behrens. Le Corbusier's villas at the Weichenhof estate showcased prefabrication, modularity, and the 5 points of architecture. Le Corbusier's contribution to the Weichenhof estate marked a major milestone in the development of modernist housing and is considered the Bible of housing. Another pivotal project within the Weichenhof estate is works by Walter Gropius, who designed a prefabricated modular housing system. His use of prefabricated panels and standardization was closely aligned with Le Corbusier's and J.J.P. Oud's modular approaches. Walter emphasized functionality over decoration in this project, which later influenced social housing and Bauhaus-inspired urban planning. The early shift to critical regionalism began when the residents of Le Corbusier's Pessac housing started to change the interior and exterior of their units, based on their own lifestyle. The people living in the units struggled to connect and resonate with the units they were living in, so they decided to change the aesthetics. For example, some residents disliked the machine-like appearance and added decorative elements such as pitched roofs to make the homes look more conventional. The residents also found issues with their level of privacy within the unit, so they decided to block the ribbon windows and replace them with shutters. The houses had a stark, industrial look with bright polychromatic facades, which clashed with traditional French aesthetics. Many homeowners repainted them in more neutral tones. Another example of this was Walter Gropius' Dessautorten housing estate 1927, which was a project that was considered advanced for its time in regard to technification and prefabrication. And very similar to Le Corbusier's Pessac housing, the modern considerations of the houses were changed to suit the residents. These aesthetical changes included the installation of timber shutter doors to the existing windows, and also the addition of cladding to the exterior facades. Both the Pessac and Dessautorten housing demonstrated the failure of one-size-fits-all modernism, as the residents' modifications proved the need for adaptable, climate-sensitive and culturally rooted architecture. As an outcome, critical regionalism emerged as a balanced response that blended modern techniques with local tectonics and context. Tectonic expression in architecture refers to the poetic and expressive articulation of construction techniques, materials, and structural logic. The shift from early 20th century prefabrication and modular construction to the era of tectonic expression was a response to the failures of rigid modernism and the limitations of industrialized construction. Transition involved rethinking material expression, structural articulation, and climate-responsive design while still using modern techniques. The early signs of tectonic expression in architecture was first explored in the Healy Guest House, located in Sarasota, Florida, designed by architects Paul Rudolph and Ralph Twitchell. This house is an early example of tectonic experimentation in lightweight structures, integrating modern materials with expressive structural articulation. This project bridged early modernist prefabrication with expressive tectonic logic, influencing later lightweight and tensile structures. Another example that showcased early signs of tectonic expression was the Seinäjoki Town Hall, located in Seinäjoki, Finland, designed by architect Alvar Aalto. Seinäjoki Town Hall is a prime example of where modern techniques merge with local tectonic traditions, creating an architecture that is both rational and deeply rooted in place. The key tectonic features include the expressive brick features, structural articulation, and the sloping roof form, which shapes the spatial experience. In the late 20th century, we began to see tectonic expression in architecture presented as sculpture forms, in particular, Bagsværd Church located in Copenhagen, Denmark, designed by architect J.R.N. Utzon. The Bagsværd Church is a prime example of how tectonic expression can be poetic, making structure and materiality integral to spatial experience rather than just functional components. The key tectonic feature in this project is the elegant sculptural concrete ceiling, which is clearly a masterpiece of tectonic expression. Tectonic expression in housing was prevalent in the late 20th century, and we began to see how tectonic expression could elevate social housing. Álvaro César's Malagueira housing in Évora, Portugal, is an example of this, showcasing modernist construction techniques with local materials and traditional urban forms. The exposed concrete forms and use of white-plastered masonry walls demonstrated the integration of tectonic expression. In 1983, architectural theorist Kenneth Frampton released his famous essay, Towards a Critical Regionalism, 6 Points for an Architecture of Resistance. Frampton emphasized in his essay the importance of tectonics as the art of construction and material expression. He drew from Gottfried Semper's theory of tectonics, which distinguished structure, framework, from cladding, infilling elements. Kenneth Frampton's essay reshaped architectural thinking, pushing back against generic global modernism. His call for cultural specificity, climate response, and tectonic clarity inspired many architects during that time period and is still a major influence today. Contemporary architects continue to embrace critical regionalism and tectonic expression in their projects. This is done by designing buildings that contain local materials and construction techniques, integrate sustainable climate-responsive design, and blend expressive elements with tectonic clarity. Sustainability in design is becoming more prevalent in today's society, as architects are more engaged with passive design and energy efficiency buildings. Knowing the longevity and end of life of a building today is highly considered as one of the most important elements of a project.